The loan deferral crisis. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee, and let's have a look at this article written by Jason Murphy on news.com.au discussing, well, home loan deferrals and how it could start an economic crisis. Now, we are aware that bank mortgage holidays have been extended under some conditions out until March. Some people are going to start feeling the hit already. I remember we were looking at previous articles, which actually shocked me, because you had professional couples who were dependent on government support, and we're talking people, project managers, six-figure incomes, and they were only reason they were still in their house is because of the mortgage holidays. So if people who are educated, who experienced, don't have an emergency fund, what does that help all the young people? This is probably why more and more people are living hand to mouth. So let's have a look at this. Revenge of the loan. The next few weeks are going to be very stressful for hundreds of thousands of Aussies as they get a call they've been dreading from the bank. The consequences of those phone calls will affect us all. 500,000 Australians will have a difficult conversation with a bank employee about the fact they have not been paying their loans. 500,000 people. 6 months ago, banks handed out loan deferrals like lollies. Now they're coming to take the deferrals away. The boss of the Australian Banking Association calls it the largest ever customer contact process in the industry's history. Hundreds of thousands of mortgage customers and around 100,000 small business loans are up for reassessment. And banks will be keen to get people paying again. I mean, when I'm looking at this, I'm just thinking back to, because we had a car loan for the business, we had a scanner loan for the business, and we had the business credit card. I am so glad we've managed to just get that all under control before this economy gets smashed. Because I can relate to this. I've been in this situation. I've got a $40,000 scanning piece of equipment that I use for my business and rent out. And we had to, bring the money in to pay for that. But if you're in this situation where you're completely locked down and, okay, we'll just defer it and not worry about it and hope everything comes back, and it doesn't. How many kitchens or restaurants have hired or leasing or are paying off all of their kitchen equipment? It's not going to be earning you much money now, is it? So it's not just payback time, it's also back pay time. They missed payments. The missed payments need to be made up, and the extra interest is added on top. I mean, don't people realize that it's not a gift? The banks aren't being nice to you. They're not our friends. They're just putting it off. Of course, not everyone will be able to do so. People have lost their jobs. Australia's unemployment rate is 7.5% and rising. The total amount of wages paid is down by 5%. Westpac CEO Peter King confirmed on Friday that some customers are now in strife. There will be people who do not have enough income to service their loan. He told a parliamentary committee. We're going to have to work with customers about options. There's going to be people. We're going to start seeing slowly but surely, we'll start seeing people push to sell. We'll start seeing people push to sell their properties. How many people are going to be left in negative equity? I really hope it's not someone who's just jumped on the bandwagon, the property bandwagon, a first home buyer, suckered in by all these government bribes and payments, then loses their job and just gets done. And then we start seeing, or they bought in and then you start seeing a wave of negative equity. Some of those options are ugly. Yes, banks will give some people extra time to find a new job, but not everyone. People will, in some cases, be forced to make the horrible decision to sell their homes to repay the loans. This is Australia's first recession in living memory, guys. It's not going to be easy. And there are a lot of people that are so close to the line. And we saw that with the queues at Centrelink. Couldn't even last 2 weeks. This is why they implemented the JobKeeper program, one, to keep a relationship between employers and employees. But I'd argue it's because Centrelink couldn't cope with it. Indeed, the Commonwealth Bank CEO, Matt Comyn, has suggested to some house investors they should consider selling now. And we're starting to see that happening. We're seeing Sydney apartments losing 15% or being sold at discount. We're starting to see investors getting out. You know those genius investors that have their Facebook course that they sell you? The trick is, to just buy one property, then use the equity on another to buy another and another. And don't pay principals for losers. Just pay interest only. And get the rent vest. Get the tenant to pay it off because the economy will always be good. You don't need to plan for bad times. Just go ride right to the edge because it's the only way to get ahead, apparently. Sadly, I think a lot of people think that. And sadly, I think just the way Australia is set up, without culture, too. We're house obsessed. It's not like this in other countries. Look at all the TV shows. Look at how much of our wealth has been put in property. All the stuff that we've gone from the mining boom. How much of it has been funneled into, cheap pine with a bit of flammable, probably, foam on the outside with some render. On a piece of dirt that's sold for a fortune. So where you don't even have enough room to throw a ball around in the backyard. As the next graph shows, using the latest data from APRA, the big banks have different amounts on deferral. And you can look at CommBank. And this is in millions, 60,000 million. NAB between 50 and 60. Westpac 40 and ANZ 40,000 million. And then going down for the little ones. Commonwealth Bank has the most in raw dollar terms at more than 60 billion. But NAB is a close second. That's more than 120 million between the two of them. Bank of Queensland is well down the list, but because it's a small bank, it has the highest proportion of loans on deferral at 13.3%. Could we start seeing one of the little ones go under? Is there an element of risk there? As the tidal wave of loan deferral phone calls happens around Australia, the after effect will spill out and affect the rest of us. This will happen in two ways. Outcome 1. In the best case scenario, people who were worried they were going to lose their job actually didn't. They simply start repaying their loan. That's great news for the banks, but it's not always best for other businesses. They may have been enjoying a bit of extra spending while people were freed from grinding away at their home loan. The amazing results we've seen in the retail sector recently, including profits at Harvey Norman, Kogan and JB Hi-Fi, may owe a little to the fact some people have been temporarily freed from their home loan repayments. If this effect is large, it could hurt sectors of the economy that depend on consumer spending. But the money does go somewhere, and that's to banks. Of course, if you own bank shares, you'll want them to get borrowers repaying again. Banks have paid much lower dividends this year, and that harms people who rely on dividends for their income, as well as Australians whose superannuation invest in banks, and that means pretty much all of us. Outcome 2. The hardest conversations banks will have with deferred customers are ones where they can't start to repay again. Houses will get sold. It's important to distinguish this from a mortgage default. A default is where the bank takes the house because you can't pay. A forced sale is different. It might happen when the owner owes $500,000 on a house. They can sell for $600,000. It allows the owner to pull out their equity and pay off the mortgage. Selling a house to clear your mortgage doesn't count as a default. Defaults in Australia are rare, except where the house is worth much less than the owner owes the bank. The impact of any forced sales will be felt in the housing market. If a lot of people are forced to sell their properties at once, there could be a rush of supply. Obviously, the banks do not want this. They are invested in higher house prices, but it could happen. Commonwealth Bank recently put out updated house price forecasts. They see the national house price falling by 6%. Here are the forecasts. Melbourne down 10, Sydney 4.9, Brisbane down 2.5. I mean, if we get away with this, with the fall in GDP, with the rise in unemployment, I think that'll be a miracle. Commonwealth Bank expects Canberra to actually have house price growth of 3.3% between June 20 and 21. Sydney will fall 4.9% over the same period. They predicted, and Melbourne will be the worst with falls of 10%. One thing is clear, the economic effect of this pandemic is far from over. Not on banks, not on businesses, not on jobs, and definitely not on house prices. And Jason's right there. What do you all think, everyone? What do you think will happen? We'll have to see. I don't think we'll see the real impact of this recession and the impact on the economy until middle of next year. It's going to be drawn out. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use a gold pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.